Some wars are won with strategy, others with sheer endurance. From the trenches of World War I to the frozen hell of the Eastern Front, and even today in Bakhmut, one truth remains: the side that bleeds less wins. This is attrition warfare, a brutal grind where survival itself is victory. After the shocking defeat of the Six-Day War, Egypt stood wounded but unbroken. Egypt had lost the Sinai, but not the fight. Israel sat secure in its new territories, believing Egypt was defeated, but defeat was not an option. If they couldn't reclaim the land, they would make Israel bleed for every day they held it. And so began the War of Attrition, a relentless campaign to drain Israel's strength, break their will, and turn occupation into a costly nightmare. Egypt knew they couldn't reclaim Sinai overnight, but they could make Israel suffer. Relentless artillery, air raids, and commando strikes turned every Israeli outpost into a death trap. Soldiers in Sinai weren't just holding land, they were being hunted. Egypt didn't need to advance, they just needed to make Israel bleed. But Egypt wasn't just hitting ground troops, they went after Israeli air superiority. Soviet-supplied SA-2 and SA-3 missile systems turned the skies over the canal into a deadly trap, claiming the lives of elite Israeli pilots. For every Egyptian aircraft lost, they made sure Israel paid in blood. Israel struck back, bold raids, deception, precision strikes, all to make Egypt bleed. But Egypt stood firm. This was a war of endurance, and their message was clear. Strike us, we endure. Fight us, we outlast you. Hold the land, and we will make you suffer. And suffer they did. By the time the war ended in 1970, Israel had lost hundreds of men, dozens of aircraft, and billions of dollars in military expenses. The Egyptians hadn't regained Sinai, but they had achieved something just as important. They had shattered Israel's sense of invincibility. The War of Attrition proved one thing: even when land isn't gained, war can still be won in other ways. Egypt paid a heavy price, but they also made Israel bleed. They turned the occupation of Sinai into a nightmare, forcing Israel into an unwinnable situation. This was the war before the war, the prelude to 1973's Yom Kippur War, where Egypt would strike again, this time not just to bleed Israel, but to reclaim their land.